Chapter 1. Luna's tears mixed with the spilled wine as she knelt before Elder Matthias, but it wasn't the humiliation that broke her heart, it was the memory of her mother's lullaby, the same melody now being mocked by the very man who once sang it to her. The crystal goblet lay shattered at her feet, its contents seeping into the marble floor of the grand ballroom like spilled blood. Around her, the Moonstone Gala continued in all its glittering glory, but Luna felt as though the world had stopped spinning. The elegant gown she'd borrowed from Mrs. Chen at the dry cleaners, a midnight blue creation that had made her feel beautiful for exactly 17 minutes, now clung to her knees, stained with Bordeaux. Clumsy little wolf, Elder Matthias sneered, his weathered face twisted with disgust. Though I suppose we can't call you that, can we? Since you don't have a wolf at all. The other three elders chuckled, their laughter sharp as breaking glass. Elder Catherine stepped forward, her silver hair gleaming under the chandeliers. 20 years old and still nothing. Not even a whisper of a shift. Perhaps we should tell everyone the truth about our little foundling, Elder Matthias continued, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet ballroom. Luna's blood turned to ice. About how we discovered her as an infant, covered in blood that wasn't even her own. Abandoned like garbage in the woods. The gasps from the crowd felt like physical blows. Luna's hands shook as she tried to gather the glass shards, cutting her fingers in her haste to disappear. Maybe, Elder Matthias said, humming a familiar melody that made Luna's chest constrict, maybe her real parents knew what she was. Worthless. Broken. Maybe they threw her away on purpose. That melody, the lullaby Grandma Rose had sung to her countless nights when nightmares plagued her sleep. The same tune Elder Matthias had hummed to her when she was 7 and scared during a pack meeting. Now it felt like poison in the air. Luna couldn't breathe. The walls of the ballroom seemed to close in, the whispers of the pack members growing louder, more vicious. She stumbled to her feet, ignoring the blood trickling from her palms, and ran. The garden doors burst open beneath her desperate hands, cool night air rushing to meet her fevered skin. She ran until her legs gave out, collapsing beside the marble fountain in the moon garden. The tears came then, violent and uncontrolled, 20 years of rejection and loneliness pouring out of her. I wish I'd never been born, she whispered to the indifferent stars. I wish they'd just left me to die in those woods. The truth burned worse than any physical wound. She wasn't just wolfless, she was unwanted from the very beginning. Even her birth parents hadn't loved her enough to keep her. Behind her, gravel crunched softly. Luna tensed, expecting another pack member come to mock her further, but the footsteps were too quiet, too careful. The fountain's edge is marble, a deep voice said gently. It'll cut right through that dress if you're not careful. Luna looked up through her tears to see a man she didn't recognize. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that caught the moonlight and eyes the color of storm clouds. He wore a simple black suit, nothing as elaborate as the other gala attendees, and his hands were scarred like someone who worked with them. I don't care about the dress, she whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. Borrowed? He asked, settling down on the fountain's edge beside her, careful to keep distance between them. Luna nodded, wiping her nose on her sleeve. Mrs. Chen at the dry cleaners. She thought I should have something nice for tonight. A bitter laugh escaped her. Fat lot of good it did me. The stranger was quiet for a long moment, studying the moon's reflection in the fountain water. I used to think the moon was laughing at me, he said finally. When I was young and everything felt impossible. Like it was in on some cosmic joke where I was the punchline. Aren't you going to ask what happened in there? Luna asked, surprised by his lack of curiosity about the spectacle she'd made. I figure you'll tell me if you want to. He shrugged. Besides, I heard enough. The elders aren't exactly quiet when they're being cruel. Something in his tone made Luna look at him more closely. There was an old pain in his eyes, something that recognized her hurt. You sound like you know something about cruel elders. I know something about feeling unwanted, he said simply. About wondering if you're broken somehow, if that's why people look at you like you don't belong. Luna's breath caught. Everyone else makes it look so easy. Having a wolf, knowing their place in the pack, having family who actually chose them. She picked at the torn fabric of her skirt. I work 3 jobs just to pay for Grandma Rose's medicine. She's not even my real grandmother, just another person who took pity on the broken foundling. And some days I wonder if she wishes she'd never. Stop. The stranger's voice was firm but kind. I can hear it in your voice when you talk about her. That's not pity, that's love. Real love. How would you know? The words came out sharper than she intended. Because I spent years waiting for my father to love me the way he loved my brother. Waiting for him to see me as more than a disappointment. The stranger's jaw tightened. Some people earn love, and some people just receive it. Your grandmother chose to love you. That's not pity. Luna felt fresh tears threaten. The elders said my parents abandoned me. That maybe they knew I was worthless and threw me away. The elders say a lot of things. The stranger's voice carried an edge of authority that made Luna wonder who he was. That doesn't make them true. Maybe your parents died protecting you. Maybe they loved you so much they made sure you'd be found by people who could keep you safe. You don't know that. You don't know they didn't. They sat in comfortable silence, the distant sounds of the gala floating over the garden walls. Luna found herself stealing glances at this strange man who'd found her at her lowest moment and somehow made her feel less alone. I should get back, she said finally, though she made no move to stand. Grandma Rose will be wondering where I am. She gets confused at night, and if I'm not there when she wakes up. She's lucky to have you, the stranger said. I'm lucky to have her. The truth of it settled into Luna's chest, warm and solid. Even if I am just a charity case. You're not. His voice was so certain that Luna almost believed him. Trust me on that. Luna finally looked directly at him, really looked. There was something about the way he carried himself, the way even sitting casually on a fountain edge he seemed to command the space around him. And those eyes, she'd never seen eyes quite that shade of silver gray. I don't even know your name, she said. Kieran. He smiled, the expression transforming his serious face. And you're Luna. How did you? Everyone knows Luna, he said softly. The girl who works at the diner, the bookstore, and the flower shop. Who visits the elderly pack members and reads to the children at the library. Who's never missed a community service day despite having every reason to resent this pack. Luna stared at him. I didn't know anyone noticed. People notice. The right people, anyway. Kieran stood, extending a hand to help her up. Come on. Let me walk you home. Those streets aren't safe for lone wolves. I'm not a wolf at all, remember? Luna said bitterly, but she took his hand anyway. His palm was warm and calloused, and when their skin touched, she felt something she couldn't name, a spark, a recognition, like coming home. Maybe not, Kieran said, helping her to her feet. But you're not alone anymore. As they walked through the quiet streets toward the small apartment she shared with Grandma Rose, Luna found herself talking more freely than she had in years. About her jobs, her worries about Rose's declining health, her dreams of maybe leaving Silverbrook someday to find a place where being wolfless didn't make her a pariah. Kieran listened without judgment, asking thoughtful questions that showed he was really hearing her. When they reached her building, a converted house where she rented the tiny attic apartment, Luna realized she didn't want the evening to end. Thank you, she said, meaning it more than she'd meant anything in a long time. For tonight. For listening. Thank you for trusting me with your story, Kieran replied. Luna was halfway up the stairs when she turned back. Kieran? Will I see you again? He smiled, and in the moonlight, she could have sworn his eyes flashed gold for just an instant. Count on it, Luna. She watched from her window as he disappeared into the shadows, a strange warmth blooming in her chest. For the first time in 20 years, Luna fell asleep thinking that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she'd thought. Upstairs, Grandma Rose stirred in her sleep, murmuring words that would have shocked Luna had she heard them. The king has come home at last. Chapter 2. 3 weeks after the Moonstone Gala, Luna's world began to shift in ways she couldn't explain. It started with small things. The pharmacist, Mr. Hendricks, suddenly decided to offer a community discount on Grandma Rose's expensive heart medication, 90% off, he said, because the manufacturer had provided samples. The landlord, who'd been threatening eviction for months, abruptly announced he was implementing a hardship program for long-term tenants. Even Mrs. Chen at the dry cleaners began pressing leftover pastries from her husband's bakery into Luna's hands every evening. Must be my lucky streak, Luna murmured to herself as she climbed the narrow stairs to their attic apartment, arms full of groceries she could actually afford for once. But deep down, she suspected the real reason for her sudden fortune had storm-gray eyes and a way of appearing whenever she needed him most. Kieran had become a constant, gentle presence in her life. Not overwhelming or demanding, just there. He'd show up at the diner during her break with coffee that was somehow always exactly how she liked it. He'd appear at the flower shop just as she was struggling with heavy deliveries, rolling up his sleeves without being asked. At the bookstore, he'd settle into the corner chair and read quietly while she worked, his presence a comfort she'd never expected. You don't have to keep doing this, she told him one evening as they walked home from her shift at the diner. I mean, whatever it is you're doing. The help. I know it's you somehow. Kieran's lips curved into a small smile. I don't know what you mean. The pharmacy discount. The rent reduction. Mrs. Chen's sudden generosity. Luna stopped walking and turned to face him under a streetlight. I'm not stupid, Kieran. People don't just randomly decide to help the wolfless girl out of the goodness of their hearts. Maybe they do, he said quietly. Maybe they just needed someone to remind them that kindness matters. Luna studied his face, searching for answers he wouldn't give her. Who are you really? Someone who cares about you, he replied simply. Is that so hard to believe? It was, actually. Luna had spent 20 years learning that people like her didn't get fairy tale endings. But standing there in the pool of lamplight, looking into Kieran's eyes, she almost dared to hope. Why? She whispered. Kieran stepped closer, close enough that she could catch his scent, pine and rain and something wild that made her pulse quicken. Because you have the purest heart I've ever known. Because you work yourself to exhaustion caring for everyone else but never ask for anything in return. Because when you smile, really smile, it's like watching the sun rise. Luna's breath caught. No one had ever spoken to her like that, like she was something precious instead of something broken. Kieran. I'm not asking for anything, he said softly. I just want to know you. All of you. Your fears, your dreams, the way you hum when you think no one's listening. I want to hear about your day and watch terrible movies with you and bring you soup when you're sick. I want to be the person you call when the world gets too heavy. Luna felt tears prick her eyes. You don't understand. I'm nobody special. I'm just everything, Kieran interrupted, his voice fierce. You're everything, Luna. And someday you'll see yourself the way I see you. Over the following weeks, Kieran made good on his words. He learned that she loved old black and white movies, so he'd appear at her door on Sunday evenings with popcorn and a new film from the library. He discovered she missed having someone to cook for besides herself, so he'd arrive with ingredients and let her teach him her grandmother's recipes. He found out she'd never been to the coast, so he brought her shells and sea glass from his travels, promising to take her there someday when the time was right. Luna fell for him like a stone dropping into still water, completely, irreversibly, with ripples that touched every corner of her life. But even as she allowed herself to imagine a future with him, doubt gnawed at her heart. Men like Kieran, strong, kind, obviously well-connected despite his simple clothes, didn't end up with girls like her. There had to be a catch, a moment when he'd realize she wasn't worth the effort. The thought kept her awake at night, even as her days grew brighter than they'd ever been. The first crack in her newfound happiness came on a Tuesday evening in late autumn. Luna arrived home from the bookstore to find Grandma Rose collapsed on the kitchen floor, her lips blue and her breathing shallow. Rose. Luna dropped to her knees, checking for a pulse with shaking fingers. It was there, but weak and irregular. Oh God, please, not now. Not when things are finally. She called for an ambulance, then called Kieran with fingers that could barely hold the phone steady. He answered on the first ring. Luna? What's wrong? It's Rose, she choked out. She collapsed. The ambulance is coming, but I can't lose her, Kieran. I can't. I'm on my way, he said immediately. Which hospital? St. Mary's, probably. Kieran, I'm scared. I know, sweetheart. I know. Just breathe for me, okay? I'll be right there. The next 18 hours blurred together in a haze of antiseptic smells and fluorescent lights. The doctors said Rose's heart was failing, that her body was simply wearing out. They could make her comfortable, but at 83 with her array of health problems, there wasn't much else to be done. Luna held Rose's frail hand and tried not to fall apart completely. Kieran stayed with her, bringing coffee she couldn't drink and sandwiches she couldn't eat, his quiet presence the only thing keeping her anchored. On the second night, Rose stirred from her medication-induced sleep and squeezed Luna's fingers. My sweet girl, she whispered, her voice papery thin. Come closer. Luna leaned in, tears already starting. I'm here, Grandma. I'm right here. I need to tell you something. About your family. Your real family. Rose's eyes, clouded with cataracts but still sharp, found Luna's face. You're not what everyone thinks you are. What do you mean? Rose struggled to sit up, and Luna helped her, heart pounding. In my jewelry box. The wooden one. There's a false bottom. Take it out. Luna glanced at Kieran, who nodded encouragingly. I'll get it, he said quietly, and Luna realized he must have gone to the apartment to bring some of Rose's things. He returned with the small wooden jewelry box Luna had seen 1,000 times. Following Rose's whispered instructions, Luna found the hidden compartment and withdrew a tarnished silver locket on a delicate chain. This was around your neck when they found you, Rose said, her breathing labored. The elders, they wanted to throw it away. Said it would only give you false hope. But I kept it. I always kept it. Luna's hands shook as she opened the locket. Inside was a tiny photograph of a young woman with Luna's dark hair and green eyes, and beside it, a man with kind features and a gentle smile. On the opposite side, engraved in script so small she had to squint to read it, were the words, Our little moon. Always loved. M&E. They didn't abandon you, Rose whispered, her voice growing weaker. They loved you, Luna. So much that they died protecting you. I don't know the whole story, but I know that much. You were never unwanted, my darling girl. Never. Luna clutched the locket to her chest, 20 years of pain and rejection cracking open in her heart. Why didn't you tell me before? Because you needed to grow strong first. Needed to learn who you were before you learned where you came from. Rose's eyes fluttered closed, then opened again with visible effort. Promise me something. Anything. Find them. Find out who you really are. And Luna. Rose's grip tightened with surprising strength. Don't let fear keep you from love. That boy there, she nodded toward Kieran, who stood respectfully near the window, he sees you the way your parents would have. The way I do. Don't push him away when I'm gone. You're not going anywhere, Luna said desperately. The doctors said. The doctors said what they had to say. Rose smiled, the expression peaceful. But I'm tired, sweetheart. So very tired. And your grandfather's been calling to me in my dreams. No. Luna shook her head frantically. No, you can't leave me. You're all I have. I'll always be with you. Rose lifted a trembling hand to Luna's cheek. In every kind thing you do, every person you help, every moment you choose love over fear. You carry the best of me forward, just like you carry the best of your parents. Rose's eyes drifted closed, and Luna felt panic rise in her throat. Grandma? Grandma, stay with me. Love you, my little moon, Rose breathed, and then she was still. Luna didn't remember screaming, but she must have, because suddenly nurses were rushing in and Kieran was pulling her into his arms as her world shattered completely. The locket cut into her palm where she'd been gripping it, a physical pain to match the gaping wound in her heart. They wouldn't let her see Rose again until the next morning, after they'd prepared her. Luna sat in the hospital chapel, numb and hollow, while Kieran handled the arrangements with quiet efficiency. He knew exactly who to call, what forms to fill out, which funeral home would treat Rose with dignity despite Luna's limited funds. How do you know all this? Luna asked dully as they walked out into the crisp morning air. I've had to make these arrangements before, Kieran said simply. For people I cared about. Luna nodded, too emotionally exhausted to press for details. Everything felt surreal, like she was watching someone else's life fall apart. The locket hung around her neck now, a weight both precious and unbearable. They were halfway to Kieran's car when Luna saw him, Dr. Morrison running across the parking lot, a small vial in his hand. Miss Harper. Thank God I caught you. He was breathless, his usually composed demeanor shattered. The new treatment I mentioned. It came in this morning. If we'd had it yesterday. Luna stared at the vial, her mind struggling to process what he was saying. What? It's experimental, but it's been showing remarkable results in patients with Rose's condition. If we'd been able to administer it even 12 hours ago. He trailed off, seeing the devastation in Luna's face. She's gone, Luna whispered. Dr. Morrison's face crumpled. I'm so sorry. I tried to get it rushed through approval, but the paperwork, the bureaucracy, I'm so damn sorry. Luna felt something cold and sharp twist in her chest. One day. If the medicine had arrived one day earlier, Rose might still be alive. If Luna had found a way to pay for better doctors, better treatment. If she'd been stronger, smarter, more worthy of love. Luna. Kieran's voice seemed to come from very far away. Luna, it's not your fault. But it was. She could see it now with perfect, horrible clarity. She was poison. Everything she touched withered and died. Her parents, whoever they'd been. Now Rose. And if she let herself love Kieran the way she wanted to. Don't, she said, stepping away from him. Don't touch me. Sweetheart, you're in shock. Let me help you. No. Luna's voice cracked. This is my fault. If I'd been better, if I'd done more, if I hadn't been so selfish falling for you instead of focusing on what mattered. Luna, that's not true. None of this is your fault. She laughed, the sound bitter and broken. Isn't it? My parents died because of me. Rose worked herself to death taking care of me. And now you're here, trying to fix my broken life, and all I'm going to do is drag you down with me. That's grief talking. You're not thinking clearly. Luna met his eyes, and something in her expression made him step back. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in weeks. You want to know who I really am, Kieran? I'm the girl whose parents died protecting her. I'm the burden who killed the only grandmother she ever knew by not being good enough to save. I'm poison, Your Majesty. Everyone I love dies. Kieran went very still. What did you just call me? Luna blinked, realizing what she'd said. She'd meant it sarcastically, a bitter acknowledgement of how far above her he was. But the way he was looking at her now, the way the color had drained from his face. Oh my God, she breathed. You're actually. That's why you could afford the medicine, the rent, everything. That's why everyone does what you say. You're really. Luna. No wonder you won't tell me who you are. The Alpha King, slumming it with the broken wolfless girl. What was this, some kind of charity project? A way to feel good about yourself by helping the pitiful orphan? It was never about pity, Kieran said quietly. Never. Then what was it about? Luna demanded, 20 years of hurt and rejection pouring out of her. Love? You think you love me? You don't even know me. The real me. The me that destroys everything she touches. I know you're the woman who worked 3 jobs to pay for medicine that could have been free if you just asked me. I know you're the woman who held her grandmother's hand and made her last days beautiful. I know you're the woman who blames herself for things that were never her fault because you've been told you're worthless so many times you believe it. Because it's true. Luna screamed, her control finally snapping completely. It's true, and you're too blinded by whatever this is to see it. I'm not your mate, Kieran. I'm not your salvation or your redemption or your pet project. I'm just a broken girl who kills everything she loves, and if you had any sense, you'd run as far from me as you could. Kieran stared at her for a long moment, and Luna saw something crack in his expression. Is that really what you think of me? That this has all been some elaborate game? I don't know what to think anymore, Luna whispered, the fight going out of her as suddenly as it had come. I just know that Rose is dead, and if I hadn't been so busy playing house with you, maybe I would have noticed she was getting worse. Maybe I could have saved her. And maybe the moon would have fallen out of the sky, Kieran said softly. You can't control everything, Luna. You can't save everyone. And you can't push away everyone who cares about you just because you're scared of losing them too. Watch me, Luna said, turning away from him. Watch me. She walked away then, leaving him standing in the hospital parking lot with the medicine that had come one day too late and the pieces of her heart scattered at his feet. She walked until her legs gave out, until she found herself back at the fountain where he'd first found her, and then she cried until she had nothing left. The locket pressed against her throat, and she pulled it out to look at the photograph again. Her parents, M and E, whoever they'd been, smiled back at her from across 20 years of separation. They'd loved her, Rose had said. They'd died protecting her. And now Rose was gone too, and Luna was alone with a king who thought he loved her and a truth she couldn't bear, that she was exactly what the elders had always said she was. A curse. A burden. A poison that destroyed everything pure it touched. The moon rose full and silver above her, and Luna tilted her face up to its light. I'm sorry, she whispered to Rose, to her parents, to the universe that had made the mistake of letting her live. I'm sorry I wasn't worth saving. Somewhere in the distance, she heard a wolf howl, low and mournful, like an answered prayer or a broken heart. She wondered if it was Kieran, calling to a mate who would never be able to answer. Luna closed her eyes and let the moonlight wash over her, carrying her grief up into the stars where it belonged. Tomorrow she would have to figure out how to live in a world without Rose, how to navigate the knowledge of what Kieran really was, how to honor her promise to find her real family. But tonight, she just sat by the fountain and mourned for all the love she'd been too afraid to accept, and all the love she'd never be brave enough to give. Chapter 3. Luna spent 3 days avoiding the world. She called in sick to all her jobs, ignored the concerned knocks at her door, and lived on stale crackers and tap water. The locket lay open on her kitchen table, her parents' faces staring up at her like an accusation. M and E, the inscription read. Our little moon. On the 4th morning, exhaustion finally overtook grief enough for her to sleep. She dreamed of blood and screaming, of running through dark woods with something terrible behind her. She woke with tears on her cheeks and the strange certainty that it wasn't just a nightmare, it was a memory. The knock came again at noon, persistent and familiar. Luna knew it was Kieran before she opened the door, could sense him somehow despite the walls between them. She'd been feeling it for days, a pull, a recognition that made no sense for someone who supposedly had no wolf. You look terrible, he said when she finally let him in. Thanks. You really know how to charm a girl. Luna's voice was hoarse from crying. She wore the same clothes she'd had on at the hospital, and she knew she smelled like grief and unwashed misery. Kieran studied her face with those storm-gray eyes, and she saw something she'd never noticed before, old pain, carefully hidden but still there. When's the last time you ate something that wasn't from a vending machine? I don't remember. Luna. Did you know? The question erupted from her before she could stop it. About my parents. About who they were. Did you know when you found me crying in that garden? Kieran went very still. What are you talking about? Luna picked up the locket from the table, holding it between them like evidence. Rose gave me this before she died. Said it was around my neck when they found me. There's a picture inside, and an inscription. M&E. My parents. She watched Kieran's face carefully, saw the moment recognition flickered across his features. Her heart sank. You did know, she whispered. You've known all along. Luna, let me explain. Explain what? That everything between us has been a lie. She laughed bitterly. God, I'm such an idiot. I actually thought you might. She shook her head. It doesn't matter what I thought. It does matter. Kieran stepped closer, and Luna saw that his hands were shaking slightly. It matters more than you know. Then tell me the truth. All of it. Who were they? My parents? Kieran was quiet for so long that Luna thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Your parents were King Marcus and Queen Elena Eclipse. You are Princess Selena Eclipse, sole surviving heir to the Eclipse royal pack. The words hit Luna like physical blows. She stumbled backward until she hit the kitchen counter, gripping it for support. That's impossible. I'm nobody. I'm wolfless. You're the daughter of the most powerful alpha bloodline in the Western Territories, Kieran said quietly. Your parents ruled with wisdom and compassion. They were beloved by their people, respected by other packs. And they died protecting you. Luna's legs gave out. She slid down the cabinet until she was sitting on the linoleum floor, still clutching the locket. How do you know all this? Kieran knelt in front of her, careful not to touch her despite the obvious urge to comfort. Because I was there that night. I was 16, visiting with my father's delegation. We were supposed to discuss a treaty between our packs. What happened? The Crimson Blade pack attacked during the full moon ceremony. They'd been planning it for months, waiting for a night when the Eclipse pack's defenses would be focused on celebration instead of protection. Kieran's jaw tightened. It was a massacre. They killed everyone, pack members, visitors, children. Anyone who might have opposed their claim to Eclipse territory. Luna felt bile rise in her throat. My parents? Your father died defending the Great Hall. Your mother. Kieran's voice broke slightly. Your mother died getting you to safety. She ran through the burning palace with you in her arms, fought off 3 attackers with her bare hands. She made it to the sacred grove before they caught her. The dream came rushing back, the scent of smoke and blood, the sound of her mother's heartbeat as they ran through the darkness. I remember, Luna whispered. Pieces of it. I thought it was just nightmares. You were barely 6 months old. Most trauma that early gets buried deep. Kieran settled back on his heels, his expression distant. I found her there. Your mother. She was dying, but she was still holding you, still trying to protect you. She looked at me and said, save her. Promise me you'll save her. Luna's vision blurred with tears. And you did. I tried. I was wounded, bleeding out from a sword wound to my side, but I managed to carry you out of Eclipse territory. I collapsed about 2 miles into Silverbrook lands. That's where the patrol found us both. The elders. Kieran's expression hardened. The same 4 elders who've spent 20 years telling you you're worthless. They were supposed to protect you, Luna. Your parents had treaties with neighboring packs, agreements that royal heirs would be safeguarded if anything happened. The elders were supposed to raise you as the princess you are, preserve your inheritance until you came of age. But they didn't. They stole everything. Your parents' wealth, the Eclipse territories, even your identity. They spread the story that you were some foundling they'd taken pity on, made sure everyone believed you were nobody special. Kieran's voice was rough with old anger. They were supposed to tell you the truth when you turned 18. Instead, They've spent 2 years making sure you felt worthless enough that you'd never question your place. Luna stared at him, trying to process the enormity of what he was telling her. That's why I don't have a wolf. They suppressed it somehow. No magic, Kieran said softly. Just trauma. Your wolf went dormant to protect you from memories too painful for a child to bear. It's not uncommon in cases of severe emotional shock. So I'm not broken. You were never broken, Luna. You were surviving. Luna looked down at the locket in her hands, at her parents' faces smiling up at her. They died for her. Died to keep her safe. And she'd spent 20 years believing they'd thrown her away. Why didn't you tell me, she asked. All these weeks, all these months you've been, why didn't you tell me who I was? Kieran was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. Because I wanted you to choose me for who I am, not what I could give you. I wanted to know that what we had was real before I complicated it with politics and bloodlines. Something cold settled in Luna's chest. And now? Now you know everything. Do I? Luna struggled to her feet, needing the distance. Because I'm starting to think I don't know anything. About you, about us, about why any of this happened. Luna. You said you were 16 when you saved me. Yes. And you've been, what? Keeping track of me ever since? Making sure I was okay? The pieces were falling into place, and Luna didn't like the picture they made. All those years, all those times things worked out just a little too well for the poor orphan girl. That was you, wasn't it? Kieran didn't answer, but he didn't need to. Luna could see the truth in his face. The scholarship to the community college that I never applied for. The job openings that always seemed to appear just when I needed them. The way my rent was always mysteriously affordable even when other tenants were getting evicted. Luna's voice rose with each revelation. How long, Kieran? How long have you been controlling my life? I wasn't controlling anything. I was just trying to help. Answer the question. How long? Kieran's shoulders sagged in defeat. Since you were 3 years old and Rose couldn't afford your medicine for pneumonia. Since you were 7 and the other kids at school were bullying you for being different. Since you were 14 and working at that awful diner where the manager kept trying to. He stopped, running a hand through his hair. Always, Luna. I've been looking out for you always. The admission hit her like a slap. Oh my God. It wasn't pity. Then what was it? Luna demanded. Love? You think you love me? Kieran, I was a baby when you saved me. A baby. What you feel for me, it's not love. It's guilt. It's obligation. It's... Stop. Kieran's voice was sharp enough to cut. Don't you dare tell me what I feel. Then tell me yourself. When did it change? When did the little girl you saved become someone you wanted to sleep with? When did your noble rescue mission turn into this? The words were cruel, and Luna knew it. But she was drowning in revelations and betrayals, and cruelty felt like the only weapon she had left. Kieran went white. Is that really what you think of me? I don't know what to think anymore. Luna screamed. I don't know if anything between us was real, or if I'm just some project you've been working on for 20 years. The broken little princess you saved, and now you think you get to keep me as a reward for your heroism. I never thought of you as broken. Didn't you? The girl with no wolf, no family, no prospects. So pathetic that even the elders could lie to her for her entire life. So grateful for any scrap of kindness that she'd fall in love with the first man who showed her basic human decency. Luna, stop. You're hurting yourself. I'm telling the truth. Luna's voice cracked. You never loved me, Kieran. You just felt sorry for the broken little girl you saved. And I was stupid enough to think someone like me could actually deserve someone like you. Someone like you? Kieran's composure finally snapped. You're a princess, Luna. You're royalty. Your bloodline is older and more powerful than mine. If anyone should be worried about deserving someone, it should be me. Don't. Luna shook her head frantically. Don't try to make this about titles and bloodlines. This is about the fact that you've been lying to me since the day we met. This is about the fact that everything I felt, everything I thought we had, it was all built on your guilt and my ignorance. That's not true. Isn't it? You said it yourself, you wanted to know what we had was real before you told me the truth. Well, congratulations, Your Majesty. You got your answer. What we had was a fairy tale built on lies. Kieran stared at her for a long moment, and Luna saw something break in his expression. If that's what you truly believe, then there's nothing more I can say. No, Luna agreed quietly. There isn't. Kieran moved toward the door, then stopped with his hand on the knob. For what it's worth, Luna, I did love you. I do love you. Not as the child I saved, but as the woman you became. The woman who works 3 jobs to take care of someone who isn't even blood family. The woman who volunteers at the shelter and reads to elderly pack members and gives her last dollar to anyone who needs it more. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you hum when you're happy. Luna felt fresh tears threaten. Kieran. But you're right about one thing. I did feel guilty. Guilty that I couldn't save your parents. Guilty that I let you grow up believing you were unwanted. Guilty that I had a kingdom and a family and you had nothing. He turned to look at her one last time. Maybe I can't separate the love from the guilt. Maybe they're too tangled up together to ever untangle. Maybe that means we were doomed from the start. He left then, closing the door quietly behind him. Luna stood in the sudden silence of her empty apartment, surrounded by the pieces of her shattered world. She was a princess. Her parents had loved her. They died for her. And the man she'd fallen in love with had been carrying the weight of that night for 20 years, trying to make up for tragedies that were never his fault. Luna sank down at her kitchen table and picked up the locket again. Princess Selena Eclipse. The name felt foreign on her tongue, like a song in a language she'd forgotten how to speak. Her parents smiled up at her from the tiny photograph, and for the first time, Luna could see the resemblance. Her mother's eyes, her father's stubborn chin. She'd inherited more than just their looks, she'd inherited their strength, their capacity for love, their willingness to sacrifice for others. But she'd also inherited their tragedy. Their kingdom was gone, their people scattered or dead. And the man who'd saved her life had just walked out of her apartment, carrying 20 years of guilt and a love so tangled up with obligation that neither of them could tell where one ended and the other began. Luna closed the locket and pressed it against her heart. I'm sorry, she whispered to her parents, to Rose, to Kieran. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to handle the truth. Outside, storm clouds were gathering, and Luna could swear she heard a wolf howling in the distance, mournful and lost, like a heart breaking under the weight of too many secrets. She was Princess Selena Eclipse, last of her line, heir to a dead kingdom and a love she'd thrown away in her fear and pain. She was everything and nothing, powerful and powerless, royal and orphaned all at once. And she had no idea how she was supposed to live with any of it. The locket grew warm against her skin, and somewhere deep inside her chest, something stirred, a presence she'd never felt before, ancient and wild and heartbroken. Her wolf, perhaps, finally waking up after 20 years of protective sleep. Too late, Luna thought as the first drops of rain began to fall. 20 years too late. But the wolf inside her disagreed, and for the first time in her life, Luna heard another voice in her head, her own voice, but deeper, stronger, touched with power she'd never known she possessed. It's never too late to reclaim what was stolen, the voice whispered. It's never too late to make them pay. Luna opened her eyes, and in the window's reflection, she could swear they flashed gold. Chapter 4. Luna's transformation came not with power, but with profound sorrow. It happened 3 days after Kieran walked out of her life, on the night she'd finally worked up the courage to plan a memorial service for her parents, the parents she'd never properly mourned because she'd never known they existed. She'd been sitting on her kitchen floor, surrounded by old newspapers and photographs she'd found in the library's archives. Pictures of King Marcus and Queen Elena eclipse, articles about their reign, their love story, their tragic death. The weight of 20 years of stolen grief pressed down on her chest until she couldn't breathe. "I'm sorry," she whispered to their images. "I'm so sorry I never knew you. I'm sorry I wasted 20 years hating myself instead of honoring your memory." The change started in her bones, not the violent breaking and reforming she'd heard others describe, but a gentle unraveling, like coming home after a lifetime of being lost. Her skin prickled with silver light, her spine elongated with surprising grace, and when it was over, she found herself looking at the world through wolf eyes for the first time. But instead of the joy she'd always imagined her first shift would bring, Luna felt only an overwhelming tide of heartbreak. 20 years of suppressed emotion crashed over her, grief for her parents, loss for Rose, devastation over Kieran, and a loneliness so profound it felt like drowning. She lifted her silver muzzle to the ceiling and howled. The sound that emerged wasn't triumphant or fierce. It was pure anguish given voice, a lament that seemed to carry every tear she'd never been allowed to shed. The windows in her apartment trembled with the force of it, and somewhere in the distance, she heard answering calls, other wolves responding to her grief with their own mournful songs. Luna howled until her throat was raw, until her small apartment felt too confining for the magnitude of her sorrow. She flowed through the window in her wolf form, graceful and silver as moonlight, beautiful and heartbroken in equal measure. She ran through Silverbrook streets, her paws silent on the pavement, her grief trailing behind her like a wake. And everywhere she passed, supernatural beings stopped what they were doing and began to weep. Mrs. Chen stumbled out of her bakery with tears streaming down her face, not understanding why her heart suddenly felt so heavy. The vampire who ran the late-night bookshop found himself sobbing over his ledgers. Even the stone-hearted banker who'd foreclosed on half the town's homes sat in his locked office and cried for reasons he couldn't name. Luna's anguish was so pure, so overwhelming, that it touched something primal in every supernatural within a 50-mile radius. Her grief called to theirs, reminded them of every loss they'd ever suffered, every love they'd ever lost. She ran until she reached Silverbrook Cemetery, where she collapsed beside the memorial stone someone, probably Kieran, had erected for King Marcus and Queen Elena eclipsed 20 years ago. The marker was simple but elegant, beloved rulers, devoted parents, forever remembered. Luna's wolf form shuddered as fresh waves of grief crashed over her. She pressed her silver muzzle against the cold marble and whimpered, finally mourning the parents she'd never known. That's where Kieran found her 3 hours later. "Luna?" His voice was soft, careful, but she could hear the concern threading through it. "Sweetheart, I felt your pain from across town. Every wolf in the territory is howling." "What happened?" She shifted back to human form without conscious thought, suddenly naked and shivering on the cemetery ground. Kieran immediately shrugged out of his jacket and wrapped it around her, his touch gentle and reverent. "I shifted," she whispered, her voice hoarse from howling. "My wolf, she's awake. I can see that." Kieran settled beside her on the ground, careful to keep his distance despite the obvious urge to pull her into his arms. "How do you feel?" "Broken." Luna pulled his jacket tighter around herself. "I thought it would feel powerful, finding my wolf. But all I can feel is everything I've lost. My parents, Rose, you." Her voice cracked. "God, Kieran, the pain is so much worse now. It's like every emotion I've suppressed for 20 years is hitting me all at once." "That's normal for trauma-suppressed wolves," Kieran said quietly. "When the barriers come down, everything floods back. It'll ease with time." Luna looked at him through tear-blurred eyes. "Will it? Because right now it feels like I'm drowning." "You're not drowning. You're finally feeling everything you were never allowed to feel. It's overwhelming, but it's also healing." Kieran's hand hovered near her cheek before he pulled it back. "Your parents would be proud of you, Luna. You found your way back to your wolf despite everything they put you through." "Don't." Luna shook her head. "Don't be kind to me. Not when I said such horrible things to you. You were in shock. You were grieving and confused, and I was cruel. Luna met his eyes. I accused you of using me, of never really loving me. I threw 20 years of protection and care back in your face because I was scared. Kieran was quiet for a moment, his gray eyes unreadable. Were you wrong? The question hung between them like a blade. Luna searched his face, looking for the answer she desperately needed. I don't know, she whispered. That's what terrifies me. I don't know if what we had was real, or if it was just you trying to save the broken little girl you've been protecting all your life. Then let me ask you something, Kieran said softly. Do you think I've spent the last 20 years celibate? Do you think I never looked at another woman, never felt attracted to anyone else? Luna hadn't considered that. No. I did. I dated, I had relationships, I even came close to taking a chosen mate once. Kieran's voice was steady, matter-of-fact. But every time I tried to move forward with someone else, I'd think about this girl I knew. This impossible, stubborn, beautiful girl who worked herself to exhaustion taking care of everyone around her. Who had a smile that could light up a room and a laugh that made me believe in magic. Luna's breath caught. I told myself it was just protectiveness. That I cared about you the way I'd care about any pack member under my protection. But Luna. Kieran's voice dropped to a whisper. I've been in love with you since you were 18 years old. Since the first time I saw you working at that diner, so focused and determined despite everything the world had thrown at you. The child I saved grew up to become the woman I couldn't live without. Kieran. I know it's complicated. I know the guilt and the love are tangled up together in ways that might be impossible to separate. But what I feel for you now, today, has nothing to do with the baby I carried out of those burning woods. It has everything to do with the woman who held her grandmother's hand while she died, who forgave the elders their cruelty, who blamed herself for tragedies that were never her fault. Luna felt fresh tears spill down her cheeks. How do I know that's true? How do I know you're not just telling me what I want to hear? Because I'm here, Kieran said simply. After everything you said to me, after you threw my love back in my face and told me it was worthless, I'm still here. I'll always be here, Luna. Whether you want me or not. Before Luna could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps made them both freeze. Multiple sets of footsteps, moving with predatory stealth through the cemetery. Kieran was on his feet instantly, positioning himself between Luna and the threat. Get behind the memorial stone, he ordered, his voice sharp with command. What's happening? Someone's coming. Someone who doesn't belong here. Kieran's eyes had gone hard, scanning the shadows between the headstones. Can you shift again? Luna tried, but her wolf felt exhausted from the emotional upheaval. I don't think so. Not yet. Then stay down and stay quiet. The first arrow whistled past Kieran's ear, embedding itself in the marble memorial with a sharp crack. Silver-tipped, Luna realized with horror. Designed to kill werewolves. Well, came a familiar voice from the darkness. Elder Matthias stepped into view, flanked by two men Luna didn't recognize, hired muscle by the look of them, armed with crossbows and silver bullets. The little wolf has finally found her voice. Matthias. Kieran's voice was deadly quiet. I should have known. You should have minded your own business, boy king. Elder Matthias sneered. 20 years we've kept this secret. 20 years of peace and prosperity built on that little girl's ignorance. And now you've ruined everything. You stole her birthright, Kieran snarled. You stole her identity, her inheritance, her family legacy. She deserved to know the truth. She deserved nothing. Elder Catherine emerged from behind another headstone, her silver hair gleaming in the moonlight. Her parents were weak. Their bloodline was corrupted. We saved this territory by letting the Eclipse Pack die. Luna felt her wolf stir with rage. You knew, she whispered, rising from behind the memorial stone despite Kieran's warning gesture. You knew who I was all along, and you made me believe I was nothing. Because you are nothing, Elder Matthias said coldly. A failed princess from a dead bloodline. But now you've awakened your wolf, and that changes things. We can't let you live to reclaim what was never rightfully yours. The crossbow bolt came without warning, aimed straight at Luna's heart. But Kieran moved faster than humanly possible, throwing himself in front of her just as the silver tip found its mark. The bolt punched through his chest with a wet sound that would haunt Luna's dreams forever. He gasped, stumbled, and collapsed to his knees as blood began to pool beneath him. Kieran. Luna caught him as he fell, her hands immediately sticky with his blood. No, 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 stay with me. Had to, he whispered, his face already going pale. Couldn't let you. 2 more bolts hit him in the back as Luna cradled his head in her lap. Silver poisoning, she realized. Even if the wounds weren't immediately fatal, the silver would spread through his system like acid. You bastards. Luna screamed at the elders, but they were already melting back into the shadows, their hired killers covering their retreat. Luna, Kieran's voice was barely audible now. I need you to know, everything I said, all true. Loved you, so much. Don't you dare, Luna sobbed, pressing her hands against the wounds in his chest in a futile attempt to stop the bleeding. Don't you dare leave me. Not now. Not when I finally understand. But Kieran's eyes were already unfocused, his breathing shallow and irregular. Luna could feel his life slipping away beneath her hands, could smell the silver burning through his system. That's when her wolf exploded. Not in violence or vengeance, but in pure, overwhelming grief. The howl that tore from Luna's throat wasn't angry, it was heartbroken beyond measure, a sound of such profound loss that it seemed to shake the very foundations of the earth. Windows shattered throughout Silverbrook. Car alarms wailed in harmony with her grief. Every piece of glass within a 5-mile radius cracked or exploded as Luna's anguish found its voice. And the wolves came. They poured into the cemetery from every direction, pack wolves, lone wolves, even the feral ones that usually avoided civilization. They surrounded Luna and Kieran's unconscious form, their heads thrown back in mournful harmony as her grief song called to something ancient and primal in their souls. Luna barely noticed. Her entire world had narrowed to the man dying in her arms, the man who'd spent 20 years protecting her, the man she'd been too afraid to love properly when she had the chance. Through her tears, she began to sing, not words, but melody. The lullaby Rose used to hum, the tune that had comforted her through countless nightmares. She sang it to Kieran now, her voice broken but true, pouring every ounce of love she'd been too scared to express into the ancient melody. Come back to me, she whispered between verses. Please, Kieran. Come back to me. I love you. I love you so much, and I'm sorry I was too afraid to say it when it mattered. But Kieran didn't respond. His chest barely rose and fell, and Luna could feel his pulse growing weaker beneath her fingertips. Around them, the wolves continued their mournful chorus, their voices joining Luna's in a symphony of grief that would be remembered for generations. The sound carried across the territory, touching every supernatural heart with the echo of Luna's breaking soul. She was Princess Selena Eclipse, last of her line, and she was singing her soulmate's death song while her people mourned with her. The lullaby rose and fell like breathing, like heartbeat, like all the words of love she'd never been brave enough to speak. And in the distance, storm clouds gathered as if the sky itself was weeping for the tragedy unfolding in Silverbrook Cemetery. Luna sang until her voice gave out, until the sun began to rise over the headstones, until hope felt like a foreign concept and love felt like a curse. And still, Kieran lay motionless in her arms, silver spreading through his veins like liquid death, while Luna's wolf howled for everything they'd lost and everything they'd never have the chance to find. Chapter 5. Kieran woke up 3 weeks later with silver scars across his chest and no memory of loving her. Luna sat beside his hospital bed in the PAC's medical facility, watching his gray eyes flutter open for the first time since the attack. Her heart hammered against her ribs as recognition flickered across his features. Luna, he said softly, and for one precious moment, she thought everything would be all right. Then he continued. You're safe. Good. I was worried about you after the attack. His voice was kind but distant, the way someone might speak to a neighbor or a colleague they cared about but didn't know intimately. Luna's world tilted sideways. Kieran? Do you remember what happened that night? The elders tried to have you killed. I intervened. He struggled to sit up, wincing as the movement pulled at his healing wounds. I'm glad you're all right. I was concerned they might try again while I was unconscious. And before that? Do you remember before the attack? Luna's voice was barely a whisper. Kieran frowned, clearly concentrating. Pieces. I know you're Princess Selena Eclipse. I know I helped you learn the truth about your parents. We were. He paused, searching for words. We were working together to expose the elders' crimes. Working together. Like colleagues. Like acquaintances with a common goal. That's all? Luna asked, hating the desperate edge in her voice. Should there be more? Kieran's question wasn't unkind, just genuinely confused. Luna, did I miss something important? You look like I've hurt you somehow. Luna forced a smile, swallowing the sob that threatened to escape. No. No, you didn't miss anything. I'm just glad you're alive. Dr. Reeves appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. Miss Harper, could I speak with you privately? Luna followed him into the hallway on unsteady legs. Tell me. The silver poisoning was extensive, Dr. Reeves said quietly. We managed to save his life, but there was significant neurological damage. His wolf is completely gone, the silver burned out that part of him entirely. And his memories. He shook his head. The damage appears to be selective. He remembers facts, faces, basic relationships. But emotional memories, intimate connections, those seem to be the most affected. Will they come back? Honestly? I don't know. This kind of silver poisoning is rare. Most wolves don't survive it, and those who do. Dr. Reeves' voice trailed off. What aren't you telling me? There are treatments. Experimental ones. But they're dangerous, and there's no guarantee they'd work. He handed her a thick folder. This contains everything we know about memory restoration in silver poisoning cases. Most of it isn't encouraging. Luna clutched the folder to her chest like a lifeline. I want to try everything. Miss Harper, you should know, the damage may be too extensive. And the treatments themselves could be fatal. You might have to accept that the Kieran you knew before is gone. No. The word came out sharper than Luna intended. I won't accept that. There has to be something. Dr. Reeves looked at her with sympathetic eyes. He's going to need extensive care during his recovery. Physical therapy, monitoring for seizures, help with basic tasks until his strength returns. Are you prepared for that? Yes. Luna didn't hesitate. Whatever he needs. Even if he never remembers loving you? The question hit Luna like a physical blow, but she lifted her chin. Especially then. Over the following weeks, Luna moved into the small apartment adjacent to Kieran's room in the medical facility. She became his constant companion, helping with physical therapy, reading to him during his recovery, making sure he ate and slept and took his medications. Kieran was grateful, always polite, often kind. But he treated her the way he might treat any dedicated caregiver. He thanked her for her help, asked about her day, even smiled at her jokes. But there was no recognition in his eyes when she entered a room, no quickening of his pulse when their hands accidentally touched, no memory of whispered promises or stolen kisses. It was like being in love with a ghost. You don't have to do this, he told her one evening as she helped him through his exercises. The silver had damaged more than his memories, his coordination was affected, his strength depleted. Simple tasks like buttoning his shirt or preparing meals had become monumental challenges. I know, Luna said, steadying his arm as he worked to regain his balance. Then why do you? I mean, I'm grateful, but surely you have your own life to live. Your own responsibilities. Luna's throat tightened. You're my responsibility. Am I? Luna, I've been thinking, and I can't shake the feeling that I'm missing something important. The way you look at me sometimes. Kieran paused in his exercises to study her face. Did we know each other well before all this happened? Luna's heart clenched. We knew each other. How well? The truth hung between them like a blade. Luna could tell him everything, about their first meeting in the garden, about their quiet courtship, about the night he'd walked her home and made her believe in love for the first time. She could tell him about the way he used to look at her like she hung the stars, about the plans they'd started to make before her world fell apart. Instead, she said, well enough. Kieran watched her for a moment longer, then nodded slowly. I wish I could remember. It feels important. It was, Luna whispered, but Kieran had already turned back to his exercises. The rumor started a week later. Luna first heard them at the market, whispered by pack members who thought she couldn't hear. Cursed love, they said. Asterisk, look what happened to her grandmother. Look what happened to the king. Everyone Luna Harper loves ends up dead or destroyed, asterisk. The whispers followed her everywhere, to the pharmacy where she picked up Kieran's medications, to the library where she researched memory restoration treatments, to the medical facility where she spent her days caring for a man who looked at her like a stranger. Maybe they have a point, Mrs. Chin said one evening when Luna stopped by the bakery. Her voice was gentle but worried. Maybe you should consider stepping back. For his sake. What do you mean? That boy was fine before he met you, dear. Strong, healthy, complete. Now look at him. Mrs. Chen's expression was sympathetic but firm. Maybe the kindest thing you could do is let him heal without your influence. Luna felt like she'd been slapped. Are you saying this is my fault? I'm saying maybe love isn't supposed to cost so much. Luna left the bakery with tears burning her eyes and doubt gnawing at her heart. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was cursed. Maybe everyone she loved was destined to suffer for it. That night, she found herself standing outside Kieran's room, watching him sleep. Even unconscious, he looked peaceful, more peaceful than he'd ever looked when he was with her. No worry lines, no tension, no weight of protecting someone who brought nothing but trouble to his life. You're torturing yourself. Luna spun around to find Dr. Reeves standing in the hallway behind her. I'm just checking on him, she said quietly. No, you're punishing yourself for something that isn't your fault. Dr. Reeves moved to stand beside her at the window. I've been treating trauma cases for 30 years, Miss Harper. I've seen guilt eat people alive from the inside. Don't let it happen to you. Maybe they're right, though. Maybe everyone I love does get hurt. Or maybe, Dr. Reeves said gently, you've been the target of people who wanted to hurt you, and the people you love paid the price for their cruelty. That's not a curse, that's enemy action. Luna looked at him sharply. What do you mean? I mean someone has been interfering with Kieran's treatment. Dr. Reeves' voice was quiet but deadly serious. His recovery should be progressing faster than it is. The memory issues should be improving, not staying static. Someone has been sabotaging his care. Luna's blood turned to ice. Who? I have my suspicions, but I need proof. Dr. Reeves handed her a small vial filled with clear liquid. This was supposed to be his memory enhancement medication. But when I had it analyzed... He shook his head grimly. It's been altered. Diluted with something that actually inhibits neural recovery. The elders. That would be my guess. The question is, which one has access to the pharmacy supplies? Luna's mind raced, thinking back to conversations she'd overheard, to the way certain elders seemed to always know Kieran's condition before official reports were released. And then she remembered something that made her stomach drop. Elder Matthias, she whispered. He's been visiting Kieran. Said he wanted to check on the king's recovery personally. That's what I was afraid of. Dr. Reeves took the vial back from her. Miss Harper, there's something else. Something I discovered when I was researching your family history for the memory restoration treatments. What is it? Elder Matthias isn't just a member of the council. He's your uncle. Your father's younger brother. The world seemed to tilt around Luna. That's impossible. I found the birth records, the family trees. Matthew Eclipse, younger son of the previous Eclipse King. He changed his name to Matthias when he joined the Silverbrook Council 25 years ago. Dr. Reeves' expression was grim. Luna, I think he orchestrated the massacre that killed your parents. Why would he? Luna stopped, the pieces falling into place with horrible clarity. He wanted to rule. He was jealous of my father. More than that. According to the records I found, your parents' marriage was arranged to unite two powerful bloodlines, Eclipse and Storm. The combining of those bloodlines would have created the strongest wolf pack in the Western Territories. But if your father died without an heir, the power would pass to his brother. Luna felt sick. And he thought I died in the massacre. He's been playing a very long game, Dr. Reeves agreed. First eliminating your parents, then making sure you grew up believing you were powerless. And now that you've awakened your wolf and found your mate, he's making sure Kieran can never remember loving me. Luna's voice was hollow. Making sure I'll always be alone. There is one option, Dr. Reeves said quietly. One treatment that could restore Kieran's memories completely. Luna's heart leaped. What is it? It's called a life force transfer. Essentially, you would channel your own life energy into his damaged neural pathways, using your wolf's power to repair what the silver destroyed. Dr. Reeves' expression was grave. But Luna, the cost would be your own life. The transfer would drain you completely. I don't care, Luna said immediately. If it would restore him. Think about this carefully. You'd be trading your life for his memories. And there's no guarantee he'd want that trade if he knew about it. Luna looked through the window at Kieran's sleeping form, peaceful and whole except for the part of him that had loved her. He wouldn't want me to die for him. No, Dr. Reeves agreed. He wouldn't. But I can't live like this, Luna whispered. I can't spend the rest of my life watching him treat me like a stranger. I can't pretend it doesn't destroy me a little more each day when he looks at me and feels nothing. Luna. You don't understand. Luna turned away from the window, tears streaming down her face. I would rather die knowing he lived with all his memories intact than live knowing he'll never love me again. At least if I die, he'll remember what we had. He'll know it was real. Dr. Reeves was quiet for a long moment. The procedure would need to be performed during the full moon, when your wolf's power is strongest. That's 3 days from now. Then we do it in 3 days. Luna, you should know, if this works, Kieran will remember everything. Including how much he loved you. Losing you immediately after regaining those memories, it could destroy him. Luna closed her eyes, imagining Kieran whole and complete again, even if she wouldn't be there to see it. Better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all, right? I don't think that's how that saying was meant to be applied. Maybe not. Luna opened her eyes and looked at Kieran one more time. But it's how I choose to apply it. 3 days. 3 more days to memorize the sound of his voice, the curve of his smile, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed. 3 more days to love him from a distance, to care for him without hope of reciprocation, to prepare herself for the ultimate act of selfless devotion. Luna pressed her palm against the window, wishing she could touch his face one more time the way she used to, with love and recognition and the certainty that she was touching home. I love you, she whispered to his sleeping form. I love you enough to give you back yourself, even if it means I can't be part of that self anymore. Behind her, Dr. Reeves cleared his throat softly. Luna? Are you absolutely certain about this? Luna didn't hesitate. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. The full moon was rising, and with it, her chance to give Kieran the greatest gift she could imagine, the memory of being loved, even if she couldn't be there to love him anymore. Chapter 6. The full moon hung like a silver coin in the midnight sky as Luna prepared to die for love. She stood in the sacred grove where her parents had taken their last breaths 20 years ago, surrounded by ancient oaks that had witnessed generations of eclipse pack ceremonies. Dr. Reeves had helped her carry the unconscious Kieran here. The procedure required the power of the old magic, the deep roots that connected this land to the Eclipse bloodline. Are you ready? Dr. Reeves asked quietly, his medical bag replaced by ancient texts and ritual implements. Luna knelt beside Kieran's still form, brushing a strand of dark hair from his forehead. Even in sleep, he looked peaceful, the deep peace of someone who no longer carried the weight of remembering everything he'd lost. I need to tell him, she whispered. Before I need him to hear it one more time. Luna, he won't remember. I know. But maybe some part of him will carry it with him afterward. Maybe it will help him understand why I chose this. Dr. Reeves nodded and stepped back, giving her privacy for what might be her final words to the man she loved. Luna leaned down until her lips were close to Kieran's ear. I love you, she whispered. I love you more than my own life, more than my own soul. I love you enough to give you back everything you've lost, even if it means I can't be part of your future. Remember that, when you wake up whole again. Remember that you were loved completely. She pressed a gentle kiss to his forehead, then sat back and nodded to Dr. Reeves. I'm ready. The ritual was both simpler and more complex than Luna had imagined. Dr. Reeves guided her through the ancient words, a combination of medical knowledge and mystical practice that had been used only a handful of times in recorded history. She placed her hands on Kieran's chest, directly over his heart, and felt her wolf stir with recognition. This was what she was meant to do. This was why she'd survived the massacre as a baby, why she'd endured 20 years of rejection and pain, why she'd found her way back to Kieran despite everything that had tried to keep them apart. She was meant to save him, even if it cost her everything. The power began as a warm tingle in her palms, then grew into a steady current flowing from her body into his. Luna felt her life force responding to her wolf's call, streaming out of her and into the damaged pathways of Kieran's mind and spirit. But as the energy flowed, something unexpected happened. Instead of simply repairing the damage the silver had done, Luna's eclipse power began to transform Kieran into something more than he'd been before. She could feel his wolf returning, not weakened or diminished, but stronger than ever. And with it came memories, flooding back like a dam had burst. Their first meeting in the garden. The gentle courtship that had followed. The night he'd told her she was everything. The moment her grandmother died in her arms. The cemetery, the attack, the silver bullets meant for her heart that had found his instead. Luna, Kieran gasped, his eyes flying open as the memories crashed over him. Luna, what are you doing? But Luna was already too deep in the ritual to stop. Her life force was pouring into him like water through a broken dam, and she could feel herself growing weaker with each passing second. I'm giving you back yourself, she whispered, her voice already thready. I'm giving you back your memories, your wolf, everything they stole from you. No. Kieran struggled to sit up, his newly restored wolf giving him strength he hadn't possessed moments before. Luna, no, I won't let you die for me. It's already done, she said softly, and Kieran could see it was true. Her skin had taken on a translucent quality, her breathing shallow and labored. I chose this, Kieran. I chose you. Then I choose you too, Kieran said fiercely. Instead of pulling away from her touch, he pressed his hands over hers, creating a complete circuit between them. If you're going to pour your life into me, then I'm going to pour mine right back into you. That's not how it works. But Luna was wrong. As their mate bond flared to life, stronger and deeper than it had ever been, their combined power began to flow in both directions. Luna's eclipse energy merged with Kieran's alpha strength, creating something neither had possessed alone, a perfect balance of light and shadow, healing and protection, love and power. The transformation rippled outward from their joined hands, washing over the sacred grove in waves of silver and gold light. And in that light, a figure materialized at the edge of the clearing, Elder Matthias, drawn by the surge of power, his face twisted with rage and something that might have been fear. You stupid girl, he snarled, raising a silver blade that gleamed in the moonlight. Did you think love could conquer everything? Did you think your pathetic sacrifice would change anything? But as he stepped forward, the combined power of Luna and Kieran's bond touched him, and something extraordinary happened. Instead of destroying him, the pure love flowing between the mates began to burn away the layers of jealousy and hatred that had corrupted Matthias for decades. Luna watched in amazement as her uncle's face began to change. The cruel lines smoothed out, the cold calculation in his eyes melted away, and for the first time, she could see the resemblance to her father, the brother he'd once loved before jealousy twisted that love into something dark and destructive. "Marcus?" Matthias whispered, the silver blade falling from his suddenly trembling hands. "Oh God, Marcus, what have I done? What have I become?" He collapsed to his knees in the sacred grove, 20 years of suppressed grief and guilt finally breaking free. "I killed him," he sobbed. "I killed my own brother because I couldn't stand that he had everything I wanted. I destroyed our family because I was jealous of his happiness." Luna felt her heart break for this broken man who was her father's brother. "Uncle Matty," she whispered, using the childhood nickname she'd never known she remembered. Matthias looked up at her with eyes full of tears. "Selina? My little moon? I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry for what I did to your parents, to you, to all of us." "I know," Luna said softly. "I forgive you." The words seemed to complete something that had been broken for 20 years. Matthias doubled over with the force of his grief, but it was clean grief now, the kind that healed instead of festered, the kind that led to redemption instead of revenge. And in that moment of forgiveness, Luna felt something shift inside her. The life force she'd been pouring into Kieran began to return, flowing back into her body stronger than before. But more than that, she felt herself changing, not dying, but being reborn. Her eclipse power, rather than being drained by the ritual, had been amplified by their mate bond. She was no longer just Luna Harper, the wolfless orphan, or even Princess Selina Eclipse, the sole survivor of a massacre. She was something new, a true alpha, Kieran's equal in every way, transformed by love into exactly what she was meant to be. "How?" she gasped, staring at her hands as silver light danced around her fingers. "True mate bonds," Kieran said softly, his own eyes wide with wonder. "When both partners are willing to sacrifice everything for the other, when love is that pure and selfless, it doesn't just survive, it transcends. You didn't just save me, Luna. You saved us both." Around them, the sacred grove pulsed with new life. Flowers bloomed out of season, their petals glowing silver in the moonlight. The ancient oaks rustled their leaves in what sounded like approval. Even the air itself seemed cleaner, touched by the power of a love that had literally conquered death. Dr. Reeves stared at them in amazement. "In 40 years of practice, I've never seen anything like this. You've both been transformed, not just healed, but made stronger than you were before." Luna looked at Kieran, seeing her own wonder reflected in his storm-gray eyes. "So what happens now?" Kieran smiled, the first truly unguarded smile she'd seen from him since the attack. "Now we rebuild. The Eclipse Pack, our lives, everything that was stolen from us. We do it together, as equals." "And Uncle Matty?" Luna looked at her uncle, who was still kneeling in the grove, tears streaming down his face. "I'll spend whatever time I have left trying to atone," Matthias said quietly. "I can never undo the harm I've caused, but maybe I can prevent others from making the same mistakes. Maybe I can help heal some of the wounds I created." Luna felt a deep peace settle into her bones. Not the peace of resignation, but the peace of completion, of a story finding its true ending after years of false conclusions. "Come on," she said, helping Matthias to his feet. "Let's go home." #Epilogue Ever After's Dawn. 5 years later *. Luna rocked gently in the carved wooden chair that had once belonged to her mother, her twin pups finally settling into sleep after a long day of discovering the world. Little Marcus had his father's storm-gray eyes and stubborn chin, while Elena possessed Luna's green eyes and her grandmother Rose's gentle smile. Through the nursery window, she could see Kieran in the Eclipse Pack's rebuilt courtyard, playing tag with a group of children, not just their biological pups, but the dozen orphan supernatural children they'd taken in over the years. War orphans, abandoned shifters, cubs whose parents had died protecting others. The Eclipse Pack had become a sanctuary for lost souls, a place where family was defined by love rather than blood. "Tell us the story, Uncle Matty," called 7-year-old Sarah, a bear-shifter cub who'd arrived on their doorstep 2 winters ago, half-starved and completely alone. Matthias, now known to the children as Uncle Matty, settled onto the grass with his young audience gathered around him. At 63, his hair was completely silver, and lines of laughter had replaced the cruel marks that had once defined his features. He spent his days caring for the pack's children, teaching them history and moral lessons, making sure they knew they were loved and valued. "Which story would you like to hear?" he asked, his voice warm with the patience that came from years of practice. "The one about the princess and the king," shouted Tommy, a young wolf whose parents had died in a car accident. "The one where love conquers death," added Maria, a witch child who'd been abandoned for her unusual abilities. Luna smiled as she listened to her uncle begin the familiar tale, their story, transformed over the years into a fairy tale that taught the children about the power of love, forgiveness, and second chances. She began to hum as she rocked her sleeping babies, the same lullaby her mother had once sung to her, that Rose had sung during Luna's darkest nights, that she now sang to soothe the next generation of Eclipse wolves. The melody drifted through the window, adding a gentle harmony to Uncle Matty's storytelling. "And what happened when the princess chose to sacrifice her life for the king she loved?" Uncle Matty asked the children, following the familiar rhythm of their favorite story. "Love made them both stronger," the children chorused. "And they lived happily ever after." "And what did that teach us?" "That family isn't just about blood," Maria said solemnly. "It's about choosing to love people and take care of them." "That everyone deserves a second chance," added Tommy. "Even the people who made big mistakes. That love always wins in the end," concluded Sarah with the absolute certainty of childhood. Luna felt tears prick her eyes as she listened to the children recite the lessons that had taken her a lifetime to learn. These orphaned, abandoned, forgotten children now knew with absolute certainty that they were loved and valued. They would never spend years believing they were worthless, never doubt that they deserved happiness. Kieran appeared in the doorway, his hair tousled from playing with the children, his eyes soft with contentment. "Are they finally asleep?" "Finally." Luna looked down at Marcus and Elena, peaceful in their matching cribs. "They're going to be just like their father, too curious for their own good." "God, I hope not," Kieran laughed quietly. "I was a terror as a pup." He moved behind Luna's chair, his hands settling on her shoulders as they both looked out at their unconventional family. The courtyard was full of children now, some playing quietly, others helping Uncle Matty tend the memorial garden they'd planted for all the loved ones they'd lost, still others reading under the old oak trees. "Do you ever regret it?" Kieran asked softly. "The choice you made that night? You could have had a peaceful life, you know. No politics, no responsibility for a pack, no sleepless nights with colicky pups." Luna leaned back against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "Do you regret it? You could have chosen a mate who didn't come with quite so much baggage." "Never," Kieran said immediately, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "You're everything I ever dreamed of and things I was smart enough to dream of." "Then you have your answer." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching their chosen family enjoy the peaceful evening. The Eclipse Pack had grown from the ashes of tragedy to become something beautiful, a community built not on power or tradition, but on the simple belief that everyone deserved love and belonging. "Luna?" Uncle Matty appeared in the doorway, his voice soft to avoid waking the sleeping babies. "I wanted to thank you. Again." "For what this time?" Luna smiled at her uncle, who thanked her for something different every day, for forgiveness, for second chances, for letting him be part of the children's lives. For teaching an old fool that it's never too late to choose love over jealousy. For showing me that redemption is possible. His eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Your parents would be so proud of the woman you've become, the leader you are, the family you've built." Luna felt the familiar ache of missing parents she'd barely known, but it was a gentle pain now, the kind that honored memory rather than festered in regret. "They'd be proud of you too, Uncle Matty. You've helped raise a generation of children who will never doubt they're loved." That's a pretty good legacy. After Uncle Matty left to help settle the older children for the night, Luna and Kieran remained in the nursery, reluctant to break the peaceful spell of the evening. Outside, the sounds of their pack settling into sleep created a gentle symphony, laughter from the dormitories where the older children shared bedtime stories, the soft conversations of pack members enjoying evening walks, the distant howl of wolves celebrating another day of safety and abundance. "I love you," Luna whispered, the same words she'd spoken over Kieran's unconscious form 5 years ago, but with none of the desperation and all of the joy. "I love you too," Kieran replied, and Luna could hear the smile in his voice. "Today, tomorrow, always." Through the window, the full moon rose silver and bright over the eclipsed pack lands, blessing another generation with its light. And in the nursery where 2 sleeping babies dreamed of adventures yet to come, their parents held each other and marveled at how love had transformed not just their lives, but the lives of everyone around them. The lullaby continued long into the night, a melody of healing, of family, of love that transcended death itself and created something even more beautiful in its place. Love always wins in the end. The end. Thank you for listening. Like, share and subscribe for more.